Do you ever feel watched? Most people think their worst fears exist only in their imagination, but sometimes the nightmares we dismiss as paranoia are real. Sometimes, the feeling that you're being watched isn't just in your head. It's in the silence of your room when you're about to fall asleep. It's in the reflection of your window late at night. It's in the gut-wrenching realization that someone somewhere has been watching you all along. These stories aren't fiction. They're real experiences from people who lived through their own waking nightmares. And if you're listening to this alone, you might want to check your locks. Story 1. He's still in my house. It started with small things. At first, I thought I was just being forgetful. I'd wake up in the morning, and my kitchen cabinet would be open when I was sure I'd closed it the night before. My bedroom door would be slightly ajar when I always shut it before bed. But the worst was my phone. One night, I woke up to my phone buzzing. It was a text message from my own number. "Why don't you lock your doors?" My stomach dropped. My hands trembled as I stared at the message. I turned on my bedside lamp, scanning the room. Nothing. The apartment was silent. I tried to tell myself it was some kind of sick joke, maybe a hacker. But deep down, I knew better. That night, I double-checked every lock, every window. I even pushed my dresser in front of my bedroom door. And then, at exactly 3:13 a.m., I heard it. The sound of slow, deliberate footsteps in my kitchen. My blood ran cold. My breath caught in my throat. I reached for my phone, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. I pressed call. The ringing felt endless. Then, something even worse happened. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, the apartment was completely silent. And then I heard breathing. Right outside my door. Shallow. Slow. Like whoever, or whatever, was on the other side didn't want me to know they were there. I stayed completely still, barely breathing. Then I heard the doorknob turn. The dresser blocked it, but I could hear the slight creak as they tried to push the door open. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I was frozen in place, my entire body locked in terror. I heard a quiet chuckle, and then nothing. No footsteps, no movement, just silence. The police arrived 15 minutes later. They found my back door unlocked. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, nothing. But I know someone was there. The next day, I installed security cameras. A week later, I checked the footage. At 3:13 a.m., the night it happened, my back door swung open by itself, and standing just outside was a man, tall, motionless, watching my bedroom window, and then as if he could sense the camera was recording, he looked directly into the lens and smiled. That was the last night I ever slept in that apartment. But sometimes, I wake up in my new place and find my bedroom door open. Story 2. The Man in the Vents. I moved into my first apartment straight out of college. It was cheap, a little run-down, but it was mine. It had one weird thing though, a vent in the bedroom ceiling. It didn't look like a normal air vent. It was a little too big, and the screws on the cover seemed loose, like someone had removed them before. The first night, I barely noticed it. The second night, I swore I heard something shift up there. By the third night, I knew something was wrong. At exactly 2 a.m., I woke up to a faint tapping sound. Slow, rhythmic, coming from inside the vent. I lay completely still, my heart pounding. I told myself it was just the building settling. Maybe an animal got in. But then, I saw it. Something moved behind the vent cover, just for a second. A brief flicker of motion, like someone shifting in a cramped space. My stomach twisted. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight and pointed it at the vent. Nothing. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The next day, I called maintenance. They checked the vent, laughed it off, and said there was nothing up there. But that night, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The vent cover was slightly looser than before. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, until I woke up at 3 a.m. and saw 2 fingers slowly pushing the vent cover open. I screamed and bolted from my bed, running straight out of the apartment. I didn't stop running until I was in my car, doors locked, hands shaking. I called the police. They found him the next day. A man had been living in my air ducts for weeks. He had a small mattress, water bottles, and my missing underwear stuffed in a corner. But the worst part? He had a journal, pages filled with notes about me, my schedule, my favorite places, what time I went to bed, and one sentence repeated over and over again: "She doesn't know I watch her sleep." Are you safe? Some people think horror stories are just that, stories. But sometimes the real world is far more terrifying than anything we can imagine. Because monsters are real, they don't hide under your bed, they don't wait in your closet, they walk among us. They sit behind you on the train, they pass you on the street, they learn your routine, they watch, they wait, and when the time is right, they strike. So tonight, when you lock your doors and shut off your lights, ask yourself, are you really alone? Or is someone right now standing just outside your window, waiting for you to fall asleep? Story 3. The fear that never leaves. Most people think nightmares end when they wake up. But some nightmares follow you. They don't just haunt your dreams, they bleed into your reality. They creep into the quiet moments when you think you're alone. They lurk in the shadows of your daily routine, just waiting for you to notice them. And when you finally do, it's already too late. These aren't just stories, these are real encounters from people who found themselves trapped in a waking nightmare. Stories of people being watched, followed, and hunted. So as you listen, ask yourself one question: how sure are you that no one is watching you right now? The man in the parking lot. I never considered myself a paranoid person. I'd always been independent, confident, and not easily shaken. But what happened 2 years ago changed me forever. It all started on a late autumn night after work. I was the last person in the office, finishing up a report that had taken longer than expected. The once busy building was silent now, the usual hum of office chatter replaced by the occasional creak of the air vents. When I finally stepped out into the parking lot, a blast of cold air hit me, sending a shiver down my spine. The lot was mostly empty, lit by a few flickering streetlights. I was parked near the back, where the light barely reached, and then I saw him. A man stood near the edge of the lot, just beyond the glow of the lights. He wasn't moving, he wasn't leaning against a car, scrolling through his phone like any normal person would. He was just standing there. A chill crawled up my spine, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was waiting for someone, maybe his car broke down, maybe I was overthinking it. I quickened my pace, unlocking my car with shaky hands, but as I reached for the door handle, I heard it, slow, deliberate, coming toward me. I glanced over my shoulder. The man was moving now, not running, not calling out to me, just walking, steady, purposeful. I didn't wait. I yanked the door open, jumped inside, and locked it in one frantic motion. My heart was pounding as I started the engine. The headlights flashed to life, illuminating the man for the first time, and that's when I saw his face, expressionless, hollow eyes locked onto mine, a faint, almost imperceptible smile curled on his lips, as if he knew something I didn't. I threw my car into reverse, tires screeching as I sped out of the lot. I didn't stop until I was halfway home, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few days, I started seeing him everywhere. At the grocery store, standing at the end of the aisle, pretending to browse the shelves. Outside my apartment, across the street, motionless in the dark. Even in my gym's parking lot, standing near the entrance, his eyes never leaving mine. At first, I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe I was imagining it. But then late one night, my phone buzzed. I hesitated before answering, but something deep inside me told me I needed to. I put the phone to my ear, and what I heard still haunts me to this day. A low, raspy whisper. "Why do you keep running from me?" I couldn't breathe. My body was frozen in place, every muscle tensed with sheer terror. I hung up and called the police, but by the time they arrived, there was no sign of him. No missed calls, no messages, no evidence he had ever been there, but I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. I moved out of state a month later, thinking I had escaped, but some nights I wake up to the sound of my phone buzzing. No number, no message, just silence. And a feeling deep in my gut that tells me he's still watching. Story 2, the roommate who wasn't real. When I moved into my college dorm, I was excited. New city, new people, a fresh start. My roommate, Daniel, was quiet but friendly enough. We didn't talk much, but we had an unspoken understanding, respect each other's space. For the first few weeks, everything was normal, until I started noticing little things. My closet door would be open when I knew I had shut it. My shoes would be in different spots. My phone charger would go missing, only to turn up in a drawer I never used. I figured Daniel was just absent-mindedly moving things around. Then one night I woke up to whispering, software muted, coming from the other side of the room. I turned over, expecting to see Daniel mumbling in his sleep. But what I saw instead made my blood run cold. He was standing in the middle of the room, facing the wall, muttering something under his breath. A chill ran through me. "Daniel?" I whispered. He stopped. The room fell eerily silent. Then, in a flat, emotionless voice, he asked, "Who's Daniel?" I sat up fast, my heart hammering against my ribs. What do you mean? You're Daniel?" He didn't move, didn't respond, just stood there, unmoving. I fumbled for my phone, turning on the flashlight. The moment the light hit him, he turned, and I saw his face. It wasn't Daniel. His eyes were too wide, his mouth slightly parted as if he was struggling to breathe. His skin didn't look real. It looked waxy, like a mannequin. I bolted for the door. I ran straight to the dorm supervisor's office, breathless and shaking. When they searched the room, there was no one there. And when they checked the records, there was never a Daniel assigned to my room. I left that school a semester later. But some nights I still hear the whispering, and I pray that I never find out who or what Daniel really was. Are you alone? Some people believe fear is all in your head, a trick of the mind, a shadow in the corner of your vision that disappears when you look directly at it. But what if it's not? What if, late at night, when you feel like someone's watching you, they actually are? What if, when you double-check your locked door, someone is standing just outside, waiting for you to turn off the lights? What if that stranger on the bus, the one staring at you just a little too long, knows exactly where you live? Next time you're walking home alone, ask yourself this: are you sure no one is following you? Or are you just hoping you don't see them when you turn around? Because if you do, run and pray it's not already too late.